All right, so here's my little solar project with a little update. So for anybody who's been following along, these gauges here are pretty much the original solar log that I started playing around with. This is back when I had a CSV file that I was uploading to the site all the time, and it seemed like it was such a waste of time because it was such a manual process to go and grab that data all the time. But it was fun trying to figure out all these different graphs and figure out how to plot when certain things would happen, and just reviewing what was going on over time. Uh, like the nice little like minimum maximum values. That was kind of cool. But that brought me to the next iteration of the project, which was getting some real-time data and updating my graphs once a minute. And that involved starting to record data into a MySQL database and communicating to the device using a Raspberry Pi and Modbus. So it was quite an interesting thing to get that set up. So now we have a graph with each little chart, um, but it leaves a lot of things desired. I still need to work out where all the different charts in the graph should be combined because I would like to compare, what the wattage is coming in compared to what's being charged in the battery and what's on the load, things like that. Um, there were other things I had plans for, like this tab here. I want to be able to edit some of the settings, the information. I want to be able to grab the information from the device itself and display it. Um, I think we have like ratings and statistics as well. The temperature I find quite interesting. I look here periodically. It's not as important, but it is something I look at for information. Right now, my battery's almost dead, so I've noticed that the power component heats up a little bit more than usual than a float chart. So it doesn't really come close to the temperature of the battery that's sitting right next to it, but closer to a heat source. But both of these are actually sitting out in the garage at the moment. Um, I find myself constantly going back and forth, changing how the duration or length of time of the graphs to be between like what's happened in the past hour, the past 3 hours, and the past day. So there's something that I need to do to modify the date range and having the ability to look back in other days as well. That's what this text box up here was all about. Was I was going to be able to change things around up there. I never did get around to it. I did discover when I put this graph up all these points, and I realized all these little spikes are the battery backup for the Raspberry Pi, kind of like charging itself or something. And then it has this really long charging duration, and that got me to thinking maybe I should actually change the timers that the power to the load is actually cut off during the night. Because right now my battery loses voltage during the night over time, and I'd rather have the Pi's battery only charge itself when there's actually power coming in from the sun. So let the batteries have a chance to relax on their own. So let's go over to what's been happening now. Is as of late, I decided, okay, let's start over and well, I didn't fully start over, but I did. Let me refresh this because this value, something's not right there. But anyway, I'm able to read like all the information from the device, so that's something I was able to do. And I'm reading every value from every address that I'm aware of. Uh, so here's the decimal address, here's the actual hex value. Then we have the data that comes in, but you can see I can also translate that data into what the end user sees. So everything's multiplied by 100, or most things are multiplied by 100 just to have two decimal points for scale. So 40 is stored as 4,000. And you can see I've also just displayed what kind of unit it is. I've added prefix to those units. And some of these I've actually started adding the ability to change their values. And this one has like drop downs, enabled, disabled. Um, some of these are pretty complex. So you can see like here's the number one, but it translates to like 10 different values. What's going on there is there's a lot of bitwise operations with bit masking and shifting and whatnot. So quite interesting figuring that out. Uh, let's see. Oh, there was like a negative temperature that stumped me for a bit here. Here, 40 degrees Celsius, negative 40. I had to make sure I shifted my bits over by 16 bits, chop them off, and put them back. And that otherwise I was getting like negative 600 some odd Celsius with decimal point values as well. Right now I'm kind of working on the time and duration. So here's my timers, or this time. Right now I just have an input text field. So I just need to work on how to display that and let the end user change that. Once I get all those done, the next step would be to, as you change the different values, then see how the data is over here. I would want to calculate the new data that needs to be updated and sent to the device, and then from that point on, then actually send that data. Once all that's set up, the whole Modbus aspect of this is done, and then I'll jump over to the next part, which is like the database. And I'm debating if I should just go with stick with MySQL or just go into Elasticsearch. Just it seems from my experience it's more flexible and just a learning experience waiting to happen. So yeah, but this is nice. I can just search gel, and you don't see gel here, but you can actually see it in the drop downs. That's kind of cool. And I've changed everything to be in this JSON file or schema. So this is like a miniature database on its own. So we got units to tell me what kind of scaling I should apply to everything. We got enums, which is just a bunch of lookup lists. You know, in a regular database, this would just be like polluting the database with small tables everywhere that just don't change over time. It's just static information. We got lists of addresses, and some of those lists just pretty much give me a way to go through just certain types really quick. But we do have lookups, so we have this address by ID, so it's kind of like a flat lookup. You can see like every key matches its ID. That's just something I do quite often in JavaScript for Redux, just to make things easier to combine objects and whatnot. So this is pretty much everything's written out. We've got packs is all the bit shifting. Um, so like there's the minutes. So I'm saying okay, here's a mask that we're going to take 8 bits, but at 0 shifting, and then the next one shifts 8 bits and then takes those next 8 bits for itself. And yeah, so that's about it. So any change I make to this will actually affect what you'll see on the front end.